Welcome to the Rock is George podcast. I'm your host, George Dionne. Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to hit like, follow, or subscribe on the platform that you're listening to us on. You can also check out my work at the loudest.com on the planet, knac.com, for exclusive hard rock and heavy metal interviews, live show coverage, album reviews, and more. My guest for episode 221 is Illinois native Drew Cagle of Drew Cagle and the Reputation. Drew Cagle and the Reputation released their latest album, Bad Attitude, back on January 31st, 2025, through Pavement Entertainment. And here's Drew Cagle to tell you more about it. If I knew absolutely nothing about Drew Cagle and the Reputation, how would you describe your music to me?
I would probably describe it as songs written from the heart with really cool guitar solos.
I like that description. I think a lot of people can hear that on your latest album, Bad Attitude, which came out January 31st through Pavement Entertainment. Were there any stumbling blocks getting this album out? I know that your last album was about 4 years ago.
Yeah, I think there's always stumbling blocks as a musician. You know, when you're getting started, especially when it's solely you and you are the person who pushes everything forward. I think there's always stuff that you kind of run into along the way, especially in a 4-year gap. It was one of those things that the reason the album took 4 years to come out was when we released the Haunted EP. We spent a lot of time just trying to make sure we could get our name out there and give that a chance. And I didn't really enjoy the recording process of that record that much. So I wasn't quite rushing into recording another one. And then a couple of things just came together in the right way to where I got the opportunity to work with the producer for the Eagles. And I thought, well, this seems like a great time to record the next record.
Well, since you brought it up, why don't we talk about the producer, Matt Coles? He worked with the Eagles and Alice Cooper. He not only produced Bad Attitude, he also recorded and mixed the album. What did he bring to the table for you in putting this all together?
Man, I've been saying this in a lot of interviews. Matt Coles, he's the key to this record. He is. I just can't say enough great things about him. He was the guy that put together the A-list team of musicians that recorded on the record. He was the guy that just helped guide my vision and turn it into a reality. You know, the thing that I'm the best at is envisioning something and envisioning where an idea can go. And what he's the best at is making that a reality. It is understanding someone's vision and figuring out all the steps that you need to do to get there and make sure that it comes out as close as possible as my vision was. And I think we did just that. And I mean, Matt Coles, he couldn't have been easier to work with, and it couldn't have been more fun. And I just can't wait to make more records with him.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the music. You released 3 singles from the album so far. Why don't you tell me a little bit about what inspired All Figured Out?
Yeah, so All Figured Out was kind of on the building blocks of my reaction to the Haunted EP. It was one of those things that when we first got started, or when I first got started in the local Champaign, Central Illinois area, I was trying to play a lot of these haunted songs and some other songs, just trying to do my own original music thing, and it wasn't really received very well, as I think a lot of original musicians find when they start out. Is most people just see you as the guy down the street, not someone with an artistic vision or any sort of special musical quality. So I got met with a decent amount of pushback from it, and All Figured Out was kind of me voicing my frustrations from a combination of that and just a bunch of things that were going on in my life where I just felt like I was being real misunderstood, and all I was really doing was just trying to be the most authentic version of me, and it just felt for some reason that everyone around me had a bone to pick with me for some reason, and I just kind of channeled all that stuff instead of doing something rash and confronting all of these people. I just channel it all into my music, which is what I do. So all figured out, came out, and it's just kind of this rebellious chip on your shoulder, kind of, you know, saying "f you" back to all the haters and stuff like that, and that kind of launched the. Um, it kind of launches the entire precedent of the brand new record.
In addition to the song being sort of you figuring out the music scene and what you want to be and what you want to say, the project's name itself is sort of a dig at the local music scene too. The Reputation, it was.
Yeah,
You mentioned that, you're trying to put out original material when, I mean, a lot of the areas they want to hear cover bands, they want to hear music that they're familiar with, and it's tough to kind of sell that original material. It's the same over here in Massachusetts.
yeah, I think it's the same. Honestly, sadly enough to say, I think it's the same across the whole world, and the state of music, especially rock music, um, is kind of, to me, it's saddening to see that, because the best part of music is the original expression. The best part, my favorite part of music, is always the first time you hear your new favorite artist, and you can't have that if um, all the avenues are pointing towards just hearing the same songs you've heard before. But yeah, Bad Attitude, and the name of the album points towards that, and the band, The Reputation, it points towards that. This was something that I had been dealing with for a long time. It was 5, 10 years of dealing with this pushback and all this stuff, and so I leaned into it very early, before All Figured Out came out, or even The Haunted came out. I leaned into it very early. I was like, oh, all these people are saying I'm hard to work with, just because I want to sing songs, about my life, and to talk about the things that I'm going through. And people were saying that, and I started to amass a reputation without even trying. And it was one of those things that I was like, well, if you're going to say that I have a reputation, then I'm going to put it on the marquee. So every time people would come see me play, you would get me, and you would get my reputation that comes with it. And I've always said that, a reputation is what someone else sees of you, and the image is what you want people to see of you. But the reputation is what people assume on their own. So I always said that, what, if I'm performing in one night, I'm going to be there. My reputation is going to be there, and you're just going to have to come and figure out uh, which one's the real me. And so that's where I came up with the name for that. And then the Haunted EP came out, and it was still kind of facing some of that pushback. And when it came time for this Bad Attitude record, it was pretty much like, all right, the gloves are coming off. I'm sick of this. I'm taking the reins, and I'm just gonna take over this whole thing.
You released the album's title track, Bad Attitude, as a single. It features Tracy Guns of LA Guns. Was his appearance courtesy of Matt Coles, or was it based on your band opening up for his at one point?
So that was pretty organic, between just some two bands out on the road. So we had done some shows with LA Guns back in, I think it was February 2024, and at that point in time, the entire record was finished. There was all 7 songs were done. We had the title track, Bad Attitude, and we were kind of stuck on it. We just felt like there was something missing. It didn't have the rebellious attitude and grit that a song uh, titled Bad Attitude, especially the song that's the title track of the record, should have. And so we were just kind of in the studio, just figure thinking there was something missing and trying to figure out what we needed to add to it. And we did some shows with LA Guns, and I hit it off with Tracy. And after the last show, me and Tracy talked a little bit, and then once the tour was over, we kind of we talked a little bit more over, virtually, because he was over in LA, and I'm here in the Midwest. And it turned out that the thing that Bad Attitude was missing was Tracy Guns. We were just so close, and we must have missed it. But no, I mean, he was super cool, and it was awesome to have him come and lay down that track, which I think is just a masterful feature track. And the song entirely changed and transformed into this just massive, just in your face, aggressive, sleazy rock and roll song that I think it perfectly represents the whole record. So I'm so glad to have him a part of this thing.
Was there a woman or relationship that inspired your single She Said?
Um, I always say that a lot of songs they they're inspired by many different people, especially the love songs. They're inspired by feelings that people make you feel. There's been multiple women or whatever throughout my life that have made me feel different ways, and those get channeled into different things. I don't think that there's a specific one in mind. It's not like this was an a a filmed out experience. Like, this didn't happen in real life where I was on her doorstep on my knees or anything like that begging. It was one of those things that it's the feelings that they make you feel, and the same goes for that in the song "Wine Talk" and stuff like that. There aren't specific people into it, and there's definitely could be one or two people at a time that inspires something, but ultimately, once I write a song like that, uh, it's mostly just me processing feelings and trying to relate to other people that feel the same thing. So um, normally, after the song's written and I kind of leave it and put it out into the hands of the crowd, then it kind of transforms, and to me, it doesn't mean something that's so sad anymore. It means something to me. It's more happy to me because I can see that the song now means something to other people.
You mentioned earlier producer Matt Cole's kind of assembled your all-star band for this album. Looking through the list of names, members played for Taylor Swift, Jelly Roll, Luke Combs, Willie Nelson, Kenny Chesney, Post Malone, predominantly country music artists. I mean, this is definitely a hard rock record, but I think maybe having those country guys, you have that little extra, southern twist to it.
Yeah, it was one of those things that, obviously the record was recorded in Nashville. And it was one of those things where that's where the best musicians are, especially the A-list guys. And so Matt Cole's put them all together because, I mean, just like I had a vision, he had a vision too. And, when we sat down, we talked about this vision. Matt handpicked these guys because he's worked with all of them. So he knows what these guys are capable of. And, these guys can't, it's not, they're not the caliber of musician that you would see in an everyday, or even when you buy tickets to a show. These guys are so good that it's called A-list for a reason. They can play any genre better than your favorite band can. And I don't mean to say that to sound, like to just blow smoke or anything like that, but these guys are just so incredible. It's honestly shocking to see them perform. And it was one of those things where there was a bunch of country guys and they did have some experience playing on some rock stuff. These guys play on every record. So it's like, yes, the Shannon Forrest who played with Taylor Swift, he played on those records, but he's also the touring drummer for Toto, and Craig Young, who plays with Post Malone, he also played with Elton John. And so there is rock elements to it, but ultimately, when I came into the studio, it was one of those things. But before we even started performing, I was like, "Hey guys, this. I know this is probably something different than you normally do. This is just going to be a straight, pull no punches, in your face, um, high energy rock and roll record. I don't want you guys to hold anything back." And a lot of the time, these country records, they are play these musicians, they play background characters so that the main country star or singer can shine. And that was not at all what I wanted the case to happen, or what I wanted to happen when it came to recording this, because it's a rock record. If we have the best musicians in the world on the rock record, then we should show why they're the best musicians in the world. And so I pretty much just told every single one of them, I said, uh, don't pull back, give me everything you got and show me why you're the best. And all their faces lit up and they were so excited. And because they grew up listening to like Guns N' Roses and AC/DC and all these bands that is kind of the music that sounds like what we make. And so I just like, let's make music like that, but make it new and make it fresh. and make it something that we could energize a new generation with. And I think we did just that. And we just, from that moment on, everyone was excited, passionate about it, and just everyone just came and brought it.
I was reading that the album's title, Bad Attitude, is also kind of a throwback to a band that your father used to play in back in the 90s called Bad Attitude. There's like 15 bands with that name. Is this the Nashville based one that had the song Don't Turn Your Back on Love?
No, no. It was just a Central Illinois band. I don't think they ever did much touring or really. I think they released maybe a 4-song EP, but it was kind of just on like cassette and never never really got you know uh, terrestrial radio or global um, eyes on it. It was one of those things that was just that's what he did when he was younger and what he loved, and he time went on and he had kids, and that kind of went away, and then it came into it, and his love for rock music inspired me and my love for rock music, and then it evolved into where I am now. And uh, at the point in time, like I said earlier, the band was called The Reputation. I was dealing with all this other stuff without even trying. Apparently, it was quite clear that a lot of people around me thought that I had a bad attitude, and this was before anything had even come around or anything like that. So I was like, this is the absolute perfect name for the record. So when it came for the actual debut album, it was like, well, we're Drew Carey and The Reputation, and I have a bad attitude because it runs in the family. And so that was kind of my theory behind it. And we ended up, and it didn't stop there. I got inspired by this idea of this, and I'm one of those guys that once I have a vision or an idea, I run with it and I go above and beyond with it. I will fully commit and then some to any idea that I have. And so it was one of those things. I was like, well, the album's going to be called Bad Attitude. What can I do to take this to another level? And so I was like, well, here's a great idea. Why don't I cover one of my dad's old songs from his band? And so track 4 on the record, So Cold, is actually one of my dad's old songs. And I kind of rewrote it a little bit. It was written by my dad and Troy Hobbs, the singer and other guitarist in the band. And I rewrote some of the lyrics. I rearranged it a little bit, and I kind of put my own stamp and my own modern twist on it. And I think it just fits perfectly into the record. I think it flows perfectly right between the songs, and definitely deserves to be uh, right in the middle of the record where it should be.
Now, on the back of the CD sleeve and the vinyl sleeve, you got a couple of words crossed out. Was there a significance of leaving that in where you could have just deleted it?
It's there's an element of it where it's about branding, right? We
Yeah.
have a bad attitude. It's to the point of it's this is rock and roll. This is rebellious. It's not about looking back. It's about looking forward. If we mess up a couple of things along the way, we'll scribble it out and write right next to it, and we're going to keep going. And that's pretty much what the idea was. And ultimately, if you look on the back, um, they're the names of other songs that were on the record. So they're the start of that. So honestly, when I was creating this thing, um, I there was a different way I could have organized the songs. You don't make a record and automatically know the track list 1 through 8. That was kind of me deciding it, and obviously I had it decided before my graphic designer started to make it. But it was one of those things where I was like, I'm going to be just completely honest with the fans. This is what I actually thought the track list was going to be, and then once I realized that that doesn't tell my story the way it's supposed to be told. And I figured out the correct way to tell the story, which is kind of a fun part for me. But I figured I'd leave kind of 1 or 2 Easter eggs in there to show you another way it could have been told.
This is your first album with Pavement Entertainment. How did you end up signing the deal with them?
Yeah, so this album actually was already finished before we even got to work with Pavement. We released All Figured Out last year and did a full 3-4 month tour across the U.S. and played with a bunch of awesome rock bands along the way. And one of the rock bands that we ended up playing with was Plush in Chicago, which is signed to Pavement Entertainment. And we ended up playing that show, and the head of Pavement, Mark, was there. And we kicked off the show, and I guess blew him away, really impressed him. And when we came off stage, the promoter came over, Chris, he came over and talked to me, and he was like, "Hey, the head of Pavement's here, and I think you guys need to have a conversation." And went over and I talked to Mark a little bit, and not long after that, we put pen to paper and signed a deal for uh, promoting this next record.
Drew Cagle and the Reputation played a live show back in early January in Rosemont, Illinois, ironically opening up for a cover band.
I know, right?
How did the crowd react to the new material?
Really well. You know, it was one of those things that we that was kind of a turning point. It was a new leaf. Everyone knew the new record was coming out at this point, and I was like, well, we're gonna. Everyone knows it's coming out. I'm gonna show it to them. I'm gonna show them a glimpse of what they'll see on the Bad Attitude tour. And so uh, we came out and we brought it. We played pretty much all material from the new record, except for maybe one or two songs off of Haunted. And the people loved it. We actually surprised the fans with selling some CDs that night from the new record about a month before it was supposed to come out. And just to kind of see what people were interested in. And, you know, we sold a bunch of CDs and got a bunch of great things and a bunch of people posting online about how much they loved it before the release and stuff. And I was just really happy with the way it went, you know. And the tribute bands, they always treat us well because tribute bands, they're made up of a bunch of original musicians. They just don't do original music no more. It's it's funny when you know when I get started and you know you create rock and roll is about rebelling against something. You know, it's no secret that Drew Cagle and the Reputation, in my quest for authentic original expression, rebels against cover bands. Um, but that doesn't mean that cover bands or tribute bands necessarily don't love original music, or that we can't get along. I mean, if there's a tribute band like Jump or like you know some of the Aerosmith or Queen tribute bands that we played with in the past that draw good amounts of people because of um, the success of the bands that they're paying tribute to. You know, when they pay it forward to a new original band, I mean that's what I'm talking about. That's the value of original music and them supporting it. And these all these tribute bands, most of the time they're made up of, like I said, original musicians that whether hit a wall with original music and just said, let's do this cover thing, um, or just didn't get what they wanted out of the original scene and wanted to do something different. And so you know, when it comes down to it, we're all musicians, and when we can all be on the same page of understanding, you know, that the original music makes it the way that we can keep this genre alive longer, um, then that's how the genre flourishes. But you know, those aren't the types of people that I'm rebelling against. It's a different type of cover band, not the ones that pay tribute to bands that can't play anymore.
I know what you mean. What are your plans for live performances going forward in 2025?
Yeah, so we got a right now the plan is kind of to continue promoting this record. Um, Last year we released All Figured Out, and then we did a tour, and then the album, and then the single hit number one on the classic rock radio charts. But by that time, the tour was over, and the fans couldn't see us until you know maybe a one-off show here or there, kind of like the Jump Show or our shows with Night Ranger and Orianthi and stuff. But this year, I want to do it different. You know, it's one of those things. This is the big record. This is the big release. This needs to be done perfectly. I don't want to just rush into something. So, the way I kind of envision it and see 2025 going for us is I'm going to spend the next, you know, couple months promoting this record the correct way and making sure it gets to as many ears as possible. And, you know, if we get some success with it, and we get some people to hear it, that then they'll come to the show. I don't want to push it too much. I want to create this anticipation for this tour, instead of just giving it to you. I think that when it comes time for us to hit the road, it's more important that everyone can knows the songs and can sing the songs instead of me having to introduce them to them. And so there will be a Bad Attitude tour in 2025. I'm sure of it. It just may come a little bit later than our fans may expect.
You mentioned you're touring in 2024. You opened up for some pretty prominent names in the hard rock business: Mr. Big, Great White, Slaughter, Night Ranger, April Wine, LA Guns. Is there any particular show that stands out to you as one that you won't soon forget?
Oh man, they all do in different ways, and for different reasons. The show with We did a show with Slaughter and Great White, at the Devon Lakeshore Amphitheater in Decatur, Illinois. That one was a real special one for me. That's a venue that's right down the street from where I got started. The first time I ever played a show, and that city is very important to me. And to be able to go play the biggest venue in that town, and the most important and prestigious one, with two of my favorite bands. That one was really special, and the crowd was crazy that night, and they loved us, and I can't wait to go back to that one. When we played we did the To Hell with the Amps tour with STRYPER. That was awesome. We did or a couple shows with them, and Michael Sweet and Perry and all of them. They just all couldn't have been cooler, and they hung out with us the whole time and treated us like equals. And that was a fun thing to do. The Mr. Big show was awesome. It was on their farewell tour, and after everything was done, all the band members came out, and we hung out at the venue in Michigan and had a couple drinks with Billy Sheehan and Paul Gilbert and stuff. And when you're at the end of your touring schedule, and this is your last time in Michigan, and you still have the time to go hang out with an hour per hour with a bunch of just punk kids that are just getting started, when you're legends like that. That's really the testament of why these guys last so long. It's just they're great people, and those are the ones that always make it special. When we do a killer show, and it's just a great show all around, those are really fun too. But when the other bands on the bill, especially when they're legendary bands like that, when they come out and they thank you for being a part of the show, and they really make you feel like you added something to it, that's really fun. And those are the ones you kind of remember.
Well, Drew, those are all the questions I have for you today. The new album by Drew Cagle and the Reputation is Bad Attitude. It's out now through Pavement Entertainment. Fantastic album. I wish you the best of luck with it, and I want to thank you for taking the time tonight to tell me more about it.
Well, thank you, man. I appreciate you having me, and I appreciate you helping push this record. It really does mean a lot.
Once again, I want to thank Drew Cagle of Drew Cagle and the Reputation for coming on the Rock is George podcast. Be sure to check out their latest album, Bad Attitude, out now through Pavement Entertainment. Head over to your favorite music streaming app, take a listen to the album. If you like what you hear, buy a physical copy, support the artist. For all things Drew Cagle and the Reputation, head over to their official website, drewcagle.com. I also want to thank Barbara Papa George and Pavement Entertainment for making this interview possible. You've been great. I've been George Dionne. Discover your next favorite artist on the Rock is George